Hey, what's up YouTube? Today we're going to talk about why Uberti black powder revolvers suck when you first get them. But with a little bit of patience and gunsmithing, you can turn them into a beautiful little pistol that you're going to want to hang on your wall and have fun shooting. Before we get to that, I just want to take a few seconds to thank everybody who has subscribed. I'm up to 400 subscribers. I just put a handful of videos out at the beginning of the year and life got in the way. I walked away from it. I came back and looked and there's 400 people that have subscribed. So I think that's pretty cool. Thank you for being interested in what I'm interested in. I have a backlog of videos that I'm going to be releasing weekly now. And I'm trying to cover things that I don't really see in the black powder community. So just some different takes on things, a lot of specs and things that you might be interested in if you're shopping around. So if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to subscribe and put a cap on that like button. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. All right, guys, in front of us, we have the 1851 Colt Navy by Uberti and the 1849 Colt pocket pistol by Uberti as well. And why do these suck? And why should you buy one anyways? That is the big question. Lots of factors here. In the end, I'll give you my conclusion. But the first thing let's just talk about is going to be pricing. When it comes down to Uberti, which also goes by the name Cimarron, it's sold under the Cimarron brand, but it is a Uberti gun. And then we have Pietta, which is sold as Traditions as well. The price difference between these is quite significant, I would say. All of these models you can basically find for under $500 for the most part. The range for Pietta is going to start at about $290 for something like this. The 1851 Colt Navy by Pietta would be about $290. And then their most expensive model is going to run up to about $430. The Uberti, though, starts at a base price of $375. So quite a big difference there. And then their top models go up to about $500. So $495, I think, is the most expensive one I saw in Dixie Gunworks at the time that this is being filmed. So just to compare apples to apples, the 1851 Navy from Pietta is $300, and the 1851 Navy from Uberti is $375. So what does that extra $75 get you? Is that worth it? That's something we got to look at. What you get, in my opinion, overall, is a better grip feel. This just feels better. My biggest complaint with the Pietta was the grip. It's just horrible. The wood did not match the strap. Sharp edges. I've been bending this metal now, trying to get this to fit right, and I can't get it right. And I'm not going to give up yet. I have a feeling this will fit properly if I can bend it just correctly. Kind of prying this out a little more and putting it in a vise and seeing what I can do. But I hate the grip on this. I don't like it. The Uberti has a great grip, great feel. For that extra $75, you get aesthetically a more pleasing look. There are no manufacturer markings on the barrel that you can see. You have to pull down the loading lever, of course, as you've seen with 100 other videos, to be able to see all of the black powder only and whatnot. The hammer, though, is another big thing, in my opinion. So the hammer on a Uberti, you could strike a match on that. I mean, it grips the skin on your thumb so well. There's no mistaking that you're going to be pulling this back. It just grips. It's great. I love it. I can't speak highly enough. So the feel of it and pulling the hammer back, it's amazing. The Pietta, though, I mean, these are so shallow. Your thumb can just slide right off of it. It's, anyways, the grip I don't like. I don't feel confident that this is not going to slide off of my thumb. But anyways, this is a video not about Pietta. It's about Uberti. So let's get back to that. So is that $75 worth it? That is up to you. Better grip, better hammer pull, and then aesthetically it's more pleasing. That's what the extra $75 gets you. Other than that, I can't see any discernible difference. They're both going to come with post-purchase gunsmithing issues, and that'll be our next topic. So with both brands, what I did is I replaced the factory nipples with slick shot nipples. That has been a godsend. From shooting these now combining both of these guns, I have not shot this one yet, but combining these, I think I've maybe had one, if maybe two tops cap jams out of hundreds of rounds. Maybe I'm just lucky and shooting the right load and everything, but these slick shot nipples have been amazing. So with both models, I also dremeled out the sight groove there on the hammer so that it would shoot a little lower, since they both shoot high, and that is just to be expected with any black powder revolver. I slicked up the action in both brands, and I replaced the trigger bolt springs inside on both brands as well. So let's go now to what is different between Pietta and Uberti, and why Uberti really drops the ball. I mean, you pay extra money and you expect this thing to, you expect to get what you pay for. I mean, if you're going to pay $75, pretend this was an 1851, but you're going to pay $75 more for this, you would expect to have fewer problems. And that has not been the case with me and Uberti. I've had way more problems with Uberti. But still, I'm up for a challenge, and I'm up for doing the gunsmithing, but the feel of it at the end, and once you get it right, it's worth it, in my opinion. So I already made a video on Pietta and what I had to do with this one. Just a quick recap. I had to replace the trigger bolt spring on this, which broke within minutes of opening this from Dixie. I was just pulling the hammer back and doing this, and all of a sudden it stopped working completely, and the trigger bolt spring had snapped in half. So that was fun. Like I said, it's not pleasing to hold. The grip still doesn't fit properly. The dovetail retainer here for the loading lever, that had to be driven in. It was way off to one side or the other, and pretty ridiculous that that passed quality inspection. And then the hand was actually defective in this, and that was causing about every 20 shots, I would start to pull this back and the hammer would get locked up. And I ended up finding out what the issue was. The hand, if I have an extra one here, I thought I had one for the video. Sorry about that. The hand here, the actual spring right here on the Pietta, that was sliding back and forth. It was not locked in there, so I had to solder a little bit and then file the solder down, and that kept everything in place. And now this works 100 out of 100 times. I pulled this back 100 times. I've had no issues with it ever since. So those are the issues I had with Pietta. Now with Uberti, man, I have a laundry list, it seems, with this. With the 1851 Navy, I replaced the trigger bolt spring, but that didn't break, so I guess I can't hold that against that. The cylinder gap was absolutely horrible with this. I mean, there's no cylinder gap here. With the Pietta, this rocked right out of the box, ready for shooting. This one, I mean, you could see tons of daylight. And when I got this, it was during the global shutdown. So if I can word it that way so I don't get anything banned here. Tons of daylight. I didn't want to send this back because these were basically sold out for the whole last year, and I didn't want to, you know, complain and not get one back. So I was willing to do the gunsmithing. I have a video on how to fix that cylinder gap, or at least how I fixed it. You're welcome to check that out. I will link that below. But that took up lots of my time and research and figuring out what's the best course of action without sending this thing away. Being a novice to this, I finally got it done. I got a functional solution for it. But that took a lot of time that I shouldn't have had to spend paying the amount of money I paid for this. And these are all selling at a premium now, and they're about $125 more than they were even a year and a half ago, just due to the shutdown in Italy and whatnot. So supply and demand. The hammer face here was not cut out properly, and it's still a little screwed up, but I'm not too worried about that. I only plan on loading 5 at a time anyways, and then resting it on an open one. So not a big deal for me, but they did not cut that out, and it's still got metal on the inside that's just looking to snag caps. So I do have to, or I did file that down enough to where it's not snagging caps. What else? The loading lever on this one, as you can see, there's daylight, barely any right there, and then daylight again. Right there, this loading lever was binding up. If I were to release the loading lever and try to put it back, I had to basically bend this metal. This was under like spring tension to get it to lock back in because it was hitting here first. So it naturally wanted to be like this. So I had to Dremel that whole area down, as you can see. And you can see on the barrel how that was denting the barrel right there. So that's another thing I had to fix and address. Let's see, once I fixed the cylinder gap, then the forcing cone here was grinding on the very bottom of the cylinder itself. So it was cutting a groove right here. So then I had to be filing the bottom of the forcing cone ever so slightly. And when you do any modifications like this, you're only doing a few passes and you're putting the gun back together. Doing a few passes, putting the gun back together. It's tedious. Fixing that cylinder gap was the same thing. It was just tedious. I've taken this thing apart at least 100 times. And I just feel like you shouldn't have to do that for the amount of money you pay. And you pay more money than a Pietta. And the only issues I had with these were basically just replacing parts. I didn't have to do any actual gunsmithing. I just had to replace parts. The cylinder gap, everything was perfect. This is not cutting a groove or anything. This was great. So Uberti needs to step up their game, in my opinion, for the amount of money that you pay. Taking it apart, though, good luck getting it back together once you take it apart for your first time until you fix the infamous Uberti step that Mike Bellevue has mentioned in his videos. So the Uberti step is alongside the hammer, in there is the hand, and the hand is what rotates the cylinder. Well, the hand connects to the hammer and it rides up in this groove in here. How they cast this frame here, there's a step when you slide up the hand into its slot there. There's a step that is like a rough, like it was not milled or filed down. So once you pull it out, once you try to put it back in, the hand always hits that step and it won't go over. So you are going to be doing lots and lots and lots of filing with a flat file in there. I used a piece of wood that I got basically this thickness, and I used some of that 3M spray glue, and I put different grit sandpaper and emery paper on there, emery cloth, and I got it in there. And I spent a long time before I was able to get that hand to slide in there nicely. And then where the little slot in there where the hand pops out to actually rotate the cylinder, that was really rough in here too, and it was catching the hand. So I had to do a lot of filing with like this triangular file and whatnot. Actually, this one worked best for that. It was kind of rounded on one side like this and then flat on the other. And that was able to get in there very nicely. It was almost the shape of the slot. And that made that work. So the screw that I used to put the replacement trigger bolt spring on with, the internal screw stripped out because this is soft metal. Whether it's Pietta or Uberti, they're going to be ridiculously soft. The screw stripped out, so I had to get a factory replacement for that from my local hardware store. And yeah, that would be about it with the 1851 Navy. So lots of time I've put into this, taken it apart many, many times, but now action is slick. I love this thing. The trigger bolt spring replacement from Wolf Springs has made this very, very nice. I can't recommend those enough. And then, of course, the factory or the replacement cones or nipples from Slick Shot have been a godsend as well. So if I were to go to Uberti's 1849 Colt pocket pistol, this thing, the cylinder gap was fine. The fit and finish is great. I love the feel of it. The hammer feels great. I had no problems with the loading lever, although I do think I have to cut out the groove here with possibly, I think, this file so that this stays in there a little better. That spring could go out a little further and hold that. This just feels a little too loose for my liking. but hasn't been an issue yet. I haven't shot it yet, and I don't know if that would cause this to fall out like you see in some videos when guys are shooting. But that's fine. The main issue I had with this, and they don't make a replacement trigger bolt spring from Wolf's Gun Springs. I wish they would. I'd buy one. But the issue I had with this was overtravel. Now, when you get any of these black powder revolvers, if it's your first one, you're going to want to pull the hammer back slowly and then pull it back quickly. And then each time you twist the cylinder and see if it's locked into place. This one, the 1851 Navy from Uberti, was just fine. I could do it either way. This one, though, when I pull the hammer back slowly, it locked into place just fine. But when I pulled it back quickly, this thing overshot by about half of this length, this gap here, where the cone or the nipple is. I mean, it went way past. So this was definitely not going to fall anywhere near this the nipple here. And I've never had to deal with how to fix that, so that was a learning experience, learning how to do that. The bolt. So the bolt has basically two, like it's forked, has two springs on each side. It's the one that rides up against the hammer. So it'd be in this way, it would be the left-hand side of the bolt. That one I had to file down, and I followed the contours of the bolt. So, but I just grabbed a sanding block, basically like one of these, and I have emery paper on one, sanding block, fine grit on that, and I just ran that part of the spring from the bolt and followed how the angles were already from the factory. And I'd do about 10 light passes on here. I finished it up with this, but I would do about 10 passes on this, you know, just enough pressure with every single angle there was there to keep bringing that side down. And eventually, and I kept putting it back together, and I would see improvement. So instead of overshooting by half, it was, you know, 3/8, and then eventually it was 1/4, and then it was 1/8, and then it was almost there, and then it would hang up every once in a while. And I finally got it, taking this apart, disassembling it over and over and over again. Finally got it now to where I can pull it back quickly and it locks into place. And I've tested this about probably 200-300 times. I have not had an issue with it ever since. So that was my main issue with the 1849. So, and of course the infamous Uberti step. Once I took this apart the first time, there was no getting the hammer and the hand back in together without fixing that step with a lot of filing. So have fun with that. With Uberti, with Pietta, that was not an issue. That step is not an issue. So this is pretty easy to just take apart, put back together. This one and this one takes quite a bit of work just to put the parts back in it, even if you know exactly where they're supposed to go. Accuracy between Uberti and Pietta, it's good. Both guns shoot great. I shoot a little more accurately with the 1851 Colt Navy, just because it has a longer sight picture. It's a longer barrel when you compare them. So other than that, but I mean, I'm only shooting maximum 15-20 yards. So not a big deal. I'm grouping pretty well for me not being the best shooter in the world, but just fine, no complaints. They shoot high, of course, but that can be remedied a little bit by cutting out this sight picture and just kind of compensating if you need to. So in conclusion, despite all of the problems I've had with the Uberti models, the post-purchase gunsmithing that I just think are ridiculous with how they pass quality control leaving the factory, I just think they're a more beautiful gun. If you're willing to take on that challenge, they're a more beautiful gun than a Pietta. The Pietta, in my opinion, the wood's just lackluster. It's just nothing to write home about. Maybe it's just this model, and it's the only one I got, but this is my first one. Kind of just the look, the feel, left a sour taste in my mouth, and I went with Uberti. And then functionally, these are way poorer than this right out of the box. So, you know, it's just, a little bit of give and take. You just have to understand that no matter what black powder revolver you get, you're going to have some issues, some quirks. That's what makes it yours. You're going to have to learn how to fix them or have somebody do it for you. I'm up for the challenge, like I said. So for me, it's worth paying the extra $75 per model for the Uberti. They just are a prettier example of a firearm, in my opinion, than Pietta. But if you are looking to just get out, have some fun, shoot, not necessarily hang this thing on the wall or in a display case, and you don't want to do much gunsmithing, then I highly recommend Pietta. If you're not overly picky, you're going to save some money. You're not going to have to do any post-purchase gunsmithing. And from all the forums I've read, they get the cylinder gap down, tight. Everything is great. The action, for the most part, is just great. I did have an issue with that spring, but for the most part, besides the grip, everything with Pietta has been just replace a part. There's been no actual functional problems with the gun, whereas this had a functional problem of I could have replaced the part, but it still would have had overtravel. I had to customize that trigger bolt spring to get that one to work. I had to fix the cylinder gap on this because the arbor doesn't touch inside of the barrel assembly at the proper place, and it just caused issues. And I had to work on the retaining pin here. The barrel pin, I had to widen that a little bit to close that gap, and then I had to file things down on the forcing cone so that it wouldn't cut a groove in the cylinder. Just a lot more problems with Ubertis functionally. But if you're willing to take on that challenge and you want something that looks just a lot cleaner, feels great in the hand, I can't recommend Uberti enough. Just be prepared to do some work. And hope you enjoy this video, guys. I will have a video out soon on why you want to get the replacement slick shot nipples. And we'll do a little math, little diagram, show you exactly why they work. And I think you'll be excited. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.